What's up, my know-it-alls? Strap in. It's time for another episode of Halo, Season 1, Episode 2, Unbound. Okay, so this show has really taken me by surprise. It's got a lot of twists and turns, and this episode I was really excited for sort of what the story's going at. Now, up front, I'm going to tell you, it definitely feels like they should have let Master Chief keep his helmet on more. As far as I'm concerned, hey man, it was good enough for the Mandalorian, which it feels like that's kind of the tone they're going for, like down to his voice and a lot of other things. And I'm like, we don't need to see, I'm sorry, but I don't need to see the actor. I need to see Master Chief be Master Chief. Now, I like the moral quandary he's in, and I also feel like they've taken us a step back from some of the things we knew in the video games. I've done a little bit of research since last week. And so, like, for instance, they're introducing the spoilers, obviously, but they're introducing Cortana, and how they're handling some of that is going to be interesting to see, especially because I feel like in the games there was enough drama having to do with how Cortana breaks down over time, and Master Chief, of course, having cryo slept through some of his experiences, at least in the video games. So seeing how they marry him to her, I believe fully, either we're going to jump forward in time at the end of the season, or that will be coming, because we're going to have that sort of mentality moving forward, which is that the sci-fi, they're building to big things. And well, anyway, let's just get into it. The episode begins with a flashback, and the flashback specifically that we get is of a young Spartan. John specifically, and he stops off, Spartan 117. He stops off at the bunk of Spartan 066, and he proceeds to grab a gun, sneaks out, and he goes to the fence line where we find a young Spartan who is labeled, his area says 6066, and he is sneaking out, and he had wanted John to sneak out with him. They're running away. So John ultimately starts reading off the party line to him, and he says, well, look, man, you should come with me, this and that. And ultimately John lets him go, rather. John lets him go. Gives him 5 minutes. It's going to become important a little later. But ultimately, dude takes off, and then we cut to the current Master Chief, and he's there in what's called Slipstream. And so the ship itself is surrounded by like a bubble, and it's going through space and whatnot. He tries to explain it, and Kwan's like, you're ruining it, please stop. So, but he's deep in, there's a lot of things going on in his own mentality, in his own head, and ultimately he's trying to take her someplace where he believes they're going to be safe. Now, we jump back to the UNSC headquarters, FleetCom specifically. This time, Halsey is on a balcony, and she's having a conversation with the Admiral, like the big, or not Admiral, but like the big head chief guy of all the military. An older gentleman, and he more or less trusts her and is supporting her in her endeavors to try to go ahead and get John back. So ultimately, he's like, look, you handle the things the way you need to handle it. Just make sure you do it above board. Keep it real simple. And so then we cut to the Spartans who are in the control center, and they're sort of talking. One of them is like, I don't understand what's going on. So they're starting to realize if their leader, Master Chief, is questioning things or is acting irregular, why? And I think it's a good mentality for them to have. So again, these big strapping soldiers who are all twice the size of anybody else are the ones who are being put in charge of overseeing bringing Master Chief, the best of them, in. Okay, it's an interesting endeavor. Anyway, the Slipstream. We cut back to Master Chief and Kwan as they drop out of Slipstream, and they're in a big giant meteor cluster. They navigate somewhat deftly until finally they arrive at this place. It's a series of meteors that are all attached by giant cabling, and so it creates sort of this web, so to speak. It's neat. I like it. It's cool. Very sci-fi. Very sci-fi. they finally arrive, and when they get to where they're going, Master Chief and Kwan step out into the main hall, and the place looks literally like something straight out of Total Recall, the 1980s version with Arnold Schwarzenegger, in that there's like smoke and there's people, and everyone's like, oh, it's a Spartan, and they got guns and stuff. So then these guys try to put use a giant stack of boxes smack in front of his path, and he's kind of like, you can't even see his face, which, by the way, that's why they need to keep him in the helmet. I feel like we can conjecture an awful lot from his performance. And I'm sorry, this guy's not anywhere near the actor that Pedro Pascal is. Moving on. So Master Chief proceeds to just kind of move the whole thing over. It's hilarious because it's a giant machine, and he's just like moves it. It's brilliant. That's when a much older Spartan 066. Spartan 066 is Soren, and it's played by Bokeem Woodbine. Bokeem Woodbine I am a big fan of, and I like seeing him kind of stretching and doing these kind of roles. I'm a big fan of what he's doing in this whole thing. And so, yeah, he's apparently he had some deformity that was a result of the Spartan training or whatever else. He walks up and he's like, hey, welcome to the place, and blah, 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 and he brings him in and shows him around. So as they're walking, he's more or less kind of talking and asking him, hey, what's going on? Like, what's happening? What has happened? And so as they go through all of this, you start to realize that there's a whole lot more to this place, because they take an elevator, and the elevator takes them down to this like a car thing. Almost like a train car. They get into it, and the thing proceeds to go through, almost like Indiana Jones style, a roller coaster. And it's like going up and down and around. And finally it comes to this opening and bursts into open air, where this thing pops out and latches onto the cable. And so it proceeds to take them out into open air. So then from open air, they eventually get out into open space. And now you see why the cables exist. The cables take people to their individual little, to their meteors. If you can own one of the meteors or whatever else, they are like claim to it. And ultimately he parks it right in the bay. And that's where they're greeted by his wife and child. John's somewhat taken back by this. So Master Chief's like, well, wait a minute, I thought we couldn't have kids and whatever else. Anyway, back to that in a minute. So we cut over back to the alien space brainstem place, also known as High Charity, or the forward position for the Covenant. And they're having a conversation in their throne room thing, and they're asking the guy who survived, the one Covenant guy who survived in the cave from previous episode, the one who got away. The Spartans tried to pursue him. That wasn't able to happen. And so he's like, yeah, no, they used exactly, and the blessed one, which is their human, the sort of albino looking human. She's like, and you saw him do the same thing I do? And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely. He did the same thing. She's like, what was it? Describe it exactly. And he draws the circle, the halo, that they're all searching for. This is funny. In my research, spoilers for what might be the storyline, who knows? But in the games, I guess the Covenant thinks they're looking for the Forerunners or something along those lines. They're looking for their technology or looking for them. When they eventually find them, it's not what they think. And I think that that's brilliant. And I hope that we do something along those lines with the show. That would be really interesting. So she finally decides, hey, I need to go. I need to go myself, find this person, see this person. And she has a conversation with her overlords. And she's like, look, you guys saved me. I'm not going anywhere. And he's like, you don't understand. You're that valuable. We're starting to understand that they need these, what they call blessed ones, which are human beings with the genetic ability to tap into Forerunner technology. Again, I'm actually really impressed with this whole, it's very high sci-fi, and which, again, if you know anything about the Halo series, that makes total sense. Anyway, so we eventually cut to UNSC command, fleet command, and they're having a big meeting, and they're talking about how do we bring them back, how do we put them under control, this and that, and Halsey takes the opportunity to essentially put the Cortana program forward. So at the end of the day, and don't get me wrong, the Admiral, she's not happy. She's not happy in the least. No, for sure. Admiral Parangosky is not a happy woman. She's played by Shabana Azmi. Shabana Azmi is doing a really good work in terms of being that general who's like, or that admiral who's like, man, people are going to try to give me a hard time, and it's just really good. So then we get to see the fleet commander, the one who Halsey was talking to. He looks over and he's like, "Now, do you support this?" Because one of the other command people had been like, "Well, I thought with this program was based on technology that's illegal, which is flash cloning. Flash cloning being like you grow a clone really quickly, whatever else." Anyway, so then the leader of Fleet Command's like, "Look, are you on board?" And she's like, "Yeah, short leash." And he goes, "Okay, cool. I'm gonna leave it to you to figure out the logistics," which basically means we need to fix this. I don't care about what she's talking about in terms of stuff being illegal. I want this fixed, and if that means you got to fudge the numbers, then do that. Like, that's really what I'm getting. So then we go back to the planet Madrigal, and there's where we actually get to see our first look at the new guy who's replaced the old general, and he's sympathetic to the UNSC. He's made a deal with the UNSC, and he's executing the old general, also known as Kwan's dad. He's executing his old people, and like just boldly executing them. And then he looks up and he shoots a camera, and you find out Kwan was watching the feed off that camera. And so then we're back at the in the Meteor area, and Soren's wife is very sympathetic because apparently the Covenant destroyed her planet. So she's got a point of there's a point of connectivity there, which I see her trying to bridge that gap. And so ultimately, Soren offers John a sort of food. John's like, "Yeah, I don't taste anything." And that's because you find out that the Spartans were put through what he calls treatments. Now Soren is like, "Yeah, no, those weren't treatments. Those pellets were that are enhance field focus, like military focus, dull everything else, sense of taste, emotion, everything, and it makes you numb." And so now that's changed somehow. The Admiral has a brief encounter with Dr. Keyes, and Dr. Keyes is like, "Look, I'm the one who's supposed to be handling alien technology. I don't know what's going on. Blah, blah. Halsey shouldn't do that. She already takes all the money." And the Admiral's like, "Look, I'm done being manipulated for the day. You need to just calm down. Deal with it. I'm done." And so then we get to see John explaining to Soren about the Covenant device. This is when Soren recommends that they go visit somebody who had been captured by the Covenant. So this guy, he's sort of a crazy, wild-eyed guy and whatnot, really interesting character, and he essentially explains to them that the Covenant has blessed ones. They were kidnapping human beings. Now, obviously, there's a bigger connection happening here, which is that clearly human beings share a lineage genetically with the Forerunners. The Covenant doesn't. So they need humans. They're not trying to necessarily conquer them, but they definitely need them. And so, and that's when the dude's like, "I can tell it's you, blah, blah, blah. It's in your eyes. You have the same look as she does." And then he slaps the thing into John's hand. Boom. You see the ring, you see every lights and the whole bit. And that's when he explains, this is a weapon. This is something that can utterly change the universe the way the Covenant wants. So John immediately makes a decision, no thought involved. He starts leaving, and dude Soren's like, "What are you doing? Where are you going?" And he's like, "Look, man, I have to go back. I have to go back." And Soren tries to dig at him a little bit, and he's like, "Oh, because Halsey, this and that." And the truth is, that's all John knows, man. The world's getting too big for him, and he needs clarity. He needs focus again. So, and then he makes Soren promise, "Hey, watch out for Kwan, make sure she's safe." And then he leaves, and he turns on his beacon. They pull him in to UNSC, and while they pull him into UNSC, he's obviously in handcuffs and whatnot, and she gets the thing. Halsey comes to visit him in jail and in the brig, and she has a conversation with him, and she's talking to him, and she's like, "Why did you come back? What was it about her?" And he's like, "I don't know. I don't normally feel anything. Like, what? This is all alien to me." He's like, "But I didn't know who else to trust." So she knows she's got him. Yeah, man. There's a lot of big things happening in this episode, and they're laying the groundwork in a really big bad way. I'm excited for it. I mean, heck, I got a call from my 64-year-old father saying, he goes, "Have you seen this Halo show?" And I was like, Yes, I've seen the Halo show. Right on, man. And so he's excited. But yeah, no, I'm excited for it. So there you go. Now you know. And if knowing is half the battle, you're halfway to being a know-it-all yourself. So what's the know-it-all index for this episode? I like everything they're doing in this episode. I'm going to give this episode a 9. 9 out of 10. Not for like action or whatever else. This gave us good, solid storytelling. I was really happy with the storytelling in this. Not a whole lot of use or need for a whole bunch of CGI, so there wasn't really much to criticize there. But at the end of the day, the story itself, very tight. Very tight. I see the threads. I like where everything's going, and the pacing is nice too. So that to me deserves a 9 out of 10. Period. It's good. They're doing good things, and I can't wait to kind of see where this goes. And I hope they've already Paramount Plus has already said that they're going to renew this for a second season, which is great. So we know for a fact that they are excited about it. I'm excited about it. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. But yeah, man, like, subscribe, click the little bell icons to be notified when new content drops. I'm excited, man. I can't wait for next week. So, we'll see you then. Never forget, everyone loves a know-it-all.